She confessed, "I haven't had a man in my home for 2 years." I responded, "Looks like that's changed now." Red dust swirled across the horizon, stirred by a persistent wind that never seemed to cease. Commander Elias Kane adjusted his helmet visor, squinting through the fine haze. The planet had an eerie beauty, harsh, empty, yet strangely compelling. He had seen many worlds in his years of service, but Erendor 9 carried a sense of isolation unlike any other. The landing shuttle hummed as it touched down on the uneven ground. Small rocks bounced against the reinforced hull, but the craft held firm. Elias stepped out, boots crunching against the coarse red soil. The air was thin, yet breathable, thanks to the careful terraforming the colonies had done decades ago. Even so, the quiet here felt unnatural, like the world itself was holding its breath. Before him stood a small structure, a research outpost, square and metallic, with a few solar panels angled toward the sun. Smoke curled faintly from a vent on the side, indicating life inside. Elias adjusted the strap of his bag and walked toward the door. A sign next to it read, "Dr. Mara Linton, Xenobiology Research Station." Elias paused for a moment. Mara Linton. He had read her reports during the pre-mission briefing. Brilliant, dedicated, fiercely independent. The colony board had warned him. She was not particularly social. "Approach carefully," they had said. "She prefers solitude." He reached the door and knocked. 3 sharp raps echoed in the quiet, then silence. He tried the handle. It was locked. "Dr. Linton," he called, his voice steady but polite. From inside, a shadow moved. The door slid open a crack, revealing a woman with intense eyes and a tight bun of dark hair. She was dressed in practical work clothes, her sleeves rolled up, dust covering her hands. She looked him over with curiosity and mild suspicion. "Yes," her voice was firm, calm, but carried the weight of someone used to giving orders to no one. "Commander Elias Kane. I've come from the Central Colony. I'm here for a short diplomatic visit and to check on your research," he said, keeping his tone respectful. Mara's eyes narrowed slightly. "Diplomatic visit on Erendor 9, that's unusual. Very few people ever come here." "I understand," Elias said with a small smile, "but I was sent, and I admit I'm curious about your work. Xenobiology isn't a field most people get to experience firsthand." Mara studied him silently for a long moment. Finally, she opened the door wider. "Well, if you're here, you might as well come inside. It's not much, but it's home." Elias stepped inside and was struck by the contrast to the barren exterior. The interior was cramped but organized, filled with scientific equipment, plants in small hydroponic tanks, and the soft hum of machines maintaining life support. A window looked out onto the red plains, giving the sense that the building was both part of and apart from the planet. Mara gestured to a chair. "Sit. I'll get us some drinks." As she moved to the small kitchenette, Elias looked around. The outpost was clearly lived in, but minimally so. There was a certain warmth to it, though, a sense of human presence that the surrounding emptiness could not diminish. When she returned with 2 steaming mugs of synthesized coffee, she handed one to him and sat across the table. There was a brief silence as they sipped, the only sound the low hum of the machines and the faint whistle of the wind outside. "You know," Mara said after a while, her tone casual but her gaze steady, "I haven't had a man in my home for 2 years." Elias blinked, slightly surprised. He had expected caution, maybe curiosity, but not an admission like that. He set his mug down carefully. 2 years, he repeated. "That's quite a stretch." "Yes," Mara said simply, as if it were a fact everyone should know. "The planet doesn't see many visitors, and I prefer it that way. People are distracting. They interfere with work. They get in the way." She tilted her head, assessing him. But apparently that's changed now. Elias allowed himself a small, amused smile. "Looks like it has," he said, letting the words float in the air between them, carrying no judgment, only acknowledgement of the moment's peculiar significance. There was another pause, longer this time. Elias sensed that Mara was testing him, measuring his reaction. He knew better than to speak too much. Respecting her space and independence was the first rule of survival here, he thought. Outside, the wind had picked up, rattling the metal siding. Elias rose, motioning toward the small console by the wall. "Shall we check the systems?" "I'm sure there's a lot we can look at together." Mara nodded. "Follow me." They moved through the outpost together, Elias noticing the precision and care in everything Mara did. Pipes were labeled, wires neatly organized, and every piece of equipment seemed to have a purpose. It was clear she had built this place with both skill and love, a sanctuary for work and survival. As they checked the solar panels and life support systems, Mara explained the details with an intensity that only a true scientist could possess. Elias listened, occasionally asking questions, genuinely interested. She was passionate, knowledgeable, and unafraid to challenge him with technical points he had to think about. He respected that. Hours passed quickly, and the sun began to dip lower in the sky. Shadows lengthened, and the temperature dropped. Outside, Urindor 9 twin suns cast a fiery glow over the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. Elias stepped to the window, watching the barren landscape stretch endlessly. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Mara asked quietly, joining him. "It is," he said, "but also dangerous. I can see why someone would choose to stay indoors." Mara smiled faintly. "Danger is part of life here. You adapt or you don't survive. That's all there is to it." Elias nodded, impressed. "You've adapted well, and alone, too." "Yes," Mara said, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "Alone, but not lonely, not really. The planet teaches you to value silence and focus. People, they complicate things." Elias considered her words. He had met many brilliant minds, but Mara's combination of intellect, self-reliance, and quiet strength was remarkable. He felt a sense of respect growing, an understanding that this woman had faced isolation, danger, and the challenges of frontier life, and had emerged stronger for it. Night fell quickly on Urindor 9, the twin moons rising to cast a silver light across the red plains. Elias and Mara returned to the console to finish their systems check, the hum of machinery blending with the wind outside. As they worked, a small alarm sounded, a minor fluctuation in the power grid. Mara frowned and moved quickly, her hands flying over the controls. Elias watched, ready to assist. Together they stabilized the system, each action precise and coordinated. When the alarm cleared, Mara leaned back, exhaling deeply. "Not too bad for a first day together," she said, her tone lighter than before. Elias chuckled. "Agreed. I'd say we make a good team." Mara raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Elias could tell she was thoughtful, weighing the statement carefully. Perhaps she had never worked with another person in this way for so long. Perhaps the idea of partnership was unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. As the evening deepened, Elias settled into the modest guest area Mara had prepared. He could hear the soft whir of life support systems, the distant howl of the wind outside, and the quiet determination of the woman who had built this place with her own hands. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of calm. Despite the isolation, despite the alien landscape and the challenges that awaited him on this frontier world, Elias Kane knew that humanity, resilient, resourceful, and unafraid, had once again carved a foothold in the stars. And tomorrow, he realized, would bring both challenge and discovery. But tonight, in the quiet of Mara Linton's outpost, he felt a small victory, a reminder that even in the vast emptiness of space, human presence mattered. The next morning, the twin suns rose slowly, painting the sky in streaks of gold and crimson. Urindor 9 harsh winds had eased slightly, leaving the red dust to settle in thin layers over the jagged terrain. Commander Elias Kane awoke early, taking a moment to watch the horizon from the small window of Mara Linton's outpost. The world outside seemed calm, almost serene, but he knew better. This planet had a rhythm of its own, a pulse that was rarely predictable, and today that pulse carried a warning. Elias stepped out onto the observation platform, checking the instruments Mara had left outside. Sensors twitched in response to subtle fluctuations in the atmosphere. He frowned. The readings suggested an incoming solar storm, something stronger than the usual radiation bursts the planet endured. Mara appeared behind him, holding a tablet. Her dark eyes scanned the same data. "You're right," she said, her tone calm but firm. "This one is stronger. If we don't act quickly, it could knock out the outpost systems and our communication arrays." Elias nodded. "What's our plan?" Mara moved toward the door, gesturing for him to follow. "First, we secure the external panels and shields. Then, we reinforce the habitat systems. We can't let the storm take us by surprise." The two of them worked together like a well-oiled machine. Mara directed him with clear, precise commands, and Elias followed, impressed by her efficiency. They adjusted solar panels, sealed maintenance hatches, and checked backup generators. Dust whipped around them, stinging their faces, but neither paused. Hours passed in tense coordination. Every gust of wind and shake of the outpost reminded them of how isolated they truly were. Communication with the central colony had already begun to falter. By mid-afternoon, the first waves of the storm hit. Bright flashes danced across the horizon, visible even through the reinforced glass of the observation window. The wind grew fiercer, rattling the metal walls and sending dust swirling like miniature tornadoes. The outpost shook slightly with each pulse of the storm. Inside, Mara's fingers flew over the controls. "Shields holding at 80%, she reported, her voice steady despite the tremor in the building. "Generators stable, but we'll need to redistribute power soon or the internal systems will fail." Elias glanced at her, admiration growing. "You've done this before, haven't you?" "More times than I can count," Mara replied without looking up. "The storm patterns here are unpredictable. You adapt or you don't survive." Together, they rerouted power to the life support systems, sacrificing less critical systems to maintain oxygen, heat, and communications. The outpost creaked under the strain but held firm. For a moment, they allowed themselves a small sense of accomplishment. Then a loud bang echoed through the facility. A panel had torn loose outside, flung against the wall by the wind. Sparks flew and a faint alarm blared. "External shield breach," Mara shouted, eyes scanning the console. "We need to fix it now." Elias didn't hesitate. "I'll go out, you guide me from inside." Mara hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Suit up. The winds are strong, but we can do this." Outside, the storm hit with full force. The winds roared like a living creature, whipping dust and debris across the plains. Elias moved carefully, gripping handholds and moving toward the damaged panel. The metal bent under pressure and sparks flew dangerously close. Inside, Mara's voice crackled through his comms. "Angle your grip to the left. No, slightly lower. Yes, hold it there." Elias adjusted, sweat running down his face despite the helmet's cooling system. Together, they managed to stabilize the panel, securing it to withstand the remaining force of the storm. When he returned inside, Mara's eyes softened slightly, though her expression remained focused. "Good work," she said simply. "You adapted quickly, I like that." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "We make a good team, Mara. I think I understand why you survive so well out here." She didn't respond immediately, busy recalibrating the damaged systems, but there was a brief spark of approval in her eyes. Elias noticed it, and something about the moment felt significant. They had faced the storm together, relied on each other, and emerged intact. As the day wore on, the storm intensified further. The outpost groaned under the pressure, and small power fluctuations reminded them of the fragility of their situation. Mara ran diagnostics, while Elias moved between systems, helping wherever he could. At one point, a loud crack echoed through the outpost, a minor electrical surge, but thanks to their precautions, no major systems were damaged. Still, the storm was relentless, pushing both of them to their limits. During a brief lull in the chaos, Elias found himself standing near the observation window again. Outside, the twin suns were barely visible through the thick, swirling dust. Lightning-like bolts of solar energy danced across the sky, illuminating the rugged terrain. "It's incredible," he murmured almost to himself. Mara joined him, arms crossed. "Incredible, yes. Deadly also. Nature doesn't care about human life or human plans. You respect it, adapt, and survive. That's the key." Elias looked at her, realizing how true her words were. Her life on this planet had made her resourceful, strong, and unafraid. She had learned to rely on herself, to trust only her own skill and knowledge, and now, reluctantly, she was trusting him too. The storm raged into the evening. Both of them worked tirelessly, taking turns monitoring systems, securing panels, and reinforcing critical equipment. Sleep was impossible, but neither complained. They were focused entirely on survival, and on the subtle understanding that humans could face even the harshest challenges and prevail. Hours later, the storm began to abate. The wind softened, the dust settled, and the twin suns shone faintly through the residual haze. The outpost had survived, battered but intact. Mara leaned against a console, exhaustion evident in her posture. "Well," she said finally, "that's one way to test human endurance." Elias chuckled, though he was equally tired. "I'd say we passed," he replied. "Together, even." She gave him a rare, small smile. "Together, don't let it go to your head." They moved to the small kitchenette, making warm drinks in silence. The storm had left the world outside strange and quiet, almost peaceful after the chaos. The red dust glimmered under the dim light of the twin suns, giving the planet an almost magical quality. Sitting across from each other, Elias realized something important. This storm, this unexpected challenge, had done more than test their survival skills. It had shown them the value of collaboration, trust, and human ingenuity. Alone, they could survive, but together they could thrive even in a world as harsh as Urindor 9. Mara spoke quietly, breaking the silence. "You handled yourself well today. Not many people could have kept calm out there." Elias shook his head. "I didn't do it alone. You guided me. Without you, I'd be just another visitor lost in the storm." Her eyes met his, and for a moment the usual guardedness softened. There was respect, yes, but also something deeper, a recognition that in the face of challenge, humans could rise beyond their limits. They could adapt, survive, and even grow stronger. Night fell fully, and the outpost settled into an uneasy quiet. Outside, the wind still whispered through the jagged rocks, but it no longer carried the ferocity of the storm. Inside, both Elias and Mara finally allowed themselves a moment to rest, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, discoveries, and perhaps even opportunities. As he lay in the small guest area, Elias thought about the planet, the storm, and the woman who had become his partner in survival. Humanity had a way of leaving its mark, even in the most desolate places. They had faced danger, adapted, and survived. And in doing so, they had proven once more that humans were capable of extraordinary things, especially when they worked together. For Mara, the experience had changed something subtle inside her. She had always valued solitude, the control and clarity it provided. But now she saw the strength in partnership. Elias had arrived as a visitor, an unexpected presence in her life. But through the storm, he had shown her that two humans, united by trust and skill, could face even the harshest trials and emerge stronger. And somewhere in the quiet of the outpost, both of them understood that this was only the beginning. Urindor 9, vast and unforgiving, had tested them, and they had endured. The sky above Urindor 9 was clear, almost calm, as if the planet itself was resting after its fury. The red dust had settled into smooth lines across the ground, shaped by the wind. Sunlight reflected softly off distant rocks, and for the first time since Elias arrived, the world looked peaceful. Inside the outpost, Mara studied the system readings carefully. Her eyes moved quickly across the screens, checking power levels, shield strength, and environmental data. "Systems are stable," she said at last. "We lost some efficiency, but nothing critical." Elias nodded. "That storm could have been much worse. Your preparation saved this place." Mara did not smile, but her posture relaxed slightly. "Preparation is survival," she replied. "Out here, you don't get second chances." As she spoke, one of the external scanners emitted a soft alert. Mara frowned and pulled the data closer. "That's strange," she muttered. "What is it?" Elias asked, stepping closer. "There's a signal," she said. "It's not natural. I've never seen it before." She expanded the scan on the main screen. A faint geometric pattern appeared beneath the surface several kilometers from the outpost. It was deep, symmetrical, and far too precise to be formed by nature. Elias leaned forward. "Could it be old colony equipment?" Mara shook her head. "No human records show any structures in that area, and the material density doesn't match anything we use." Silence filled the room as they both stared at the screen. "Are you saying—" Elias began. "Yes," Mara said quietly. "This could be alien." The word carried weight. Humanity had explored dozens of worlds, but confirmed alien structures were rare. Evidence of past civilizations existed mostly as fragments and myths. If this was real, it would change everything. Mara straightened. "I need to see it. In person." Elias did not hesitate. "Then I'm coming with you." She studied him for a moment, then she nodded. "Good, I won't pretend this isn't dangerous." They prepared carefully. Environmental suits, scanning tools, power packs, emergency supplies. The terrain between the outpost and the signal site was rough, filled with sharp rock formations and unstable ground left behind by the storm. Their rover moved slowly across the red plains, its engine humming softly. The landscape stretched endlessly around them, empty and silent. As they traveled, Elias watched Mara work. She adjusted scanners, recorded readings, and made notes with focused intensity. There was excitement in her eyes now, something he had not seen before. "You've been waiting for something like this, haven't you?" he asked. Mara did not look up. "All my life," she said, "proof that we're not alone and that intelligence leaves traces behind." After several hours, the rover stopped. They stood at the edge of a shallow canyon. Below them, half buried in red soil and stone, was something unmistakably artificial. A structure. It was massive, formed of dark metallic material that reflected light in strange ways. Smooth surfaces were carved with precise lines and symbols, worn by time but still visible. Parts of it were exposed, while others remained buried deep beneath the ground. Mara's breath caught. This is impossible," she whispered. Elias felt the same awe, though he remained outwardly calm. "Looks like someone was here long before us." They descended carefully into the canyon, scanning the structure from every angle. The material resisted their tools, showing no signs of corrosion or decay. Whatever had built it, they had mastered durability beyond human technology. Mara placed her hand against the surface. "It's dormant," she said, "but not dead." Suddenly, the symbols along the structure glowed faintly. Elias stepped back instinctively. "Mara, I see it," she said, her voice steady but filled with wonder. "It's responding to us." The light pulsed gently, following their movements. Sensors on Mara's tablet began to react, picking up energy patterns unlike anything she had recorded before. "This system, it's adaptive," she said. "It's not just a machine, it's observing." Elias frowned. "Observing us?" "Yes." "And adjusting." As if responding to her words, a section of the structure shifted. Panels moved silently, opening a narrow entrance. They exchanged a look. "This could be dangerous," Elias said. Mara nodded. "Or it could be the most important discovery in human history." They entered together. Inside, the air was clean and stable. Soft light filled the corridor, illuminating smooth walls covered in symbols. The structure felt alive in a way Elias could not explain, not hostile but aware. As they moved deeper, the system activated fully. Symbols rearranged themselves, forming patterns that changed based on their movements. "It's reacting to us specifically," Mara said. "To humans." Elias stopped. "Why us?" Mara's eyes widened as realization dawned. "Because we adapt." She moved quickly, analyzing data streaming across her tablet. "This structure isn't just a building, it's a test, a filter." "A filter for what?" Elias asked. "For intelligence," she said. "For problem-solving, for resilience." They reached a central chamber. In the center floated a large, glowing construct, shifting and reshaping itself continuously. Mara approached carefully. This system was designed to measure species' capabilities. Strength alone wouldn't activate it, neither would technology. Elias crossed his arms. "Then what does?" "Ingenuity," she said. "Flexibility, the ability to adapt to unknown conditions." As if to prove her point, the system projected a complex energy pattern across the room. Mara studied it, then adjusted her tablet settings. Elias noticed something she hadn't. "The pattern," he said slowly. "It's similar to the storm data from yesterday." Mara froze. "You're right." She looked at him, surprise clear on her face. "The system is testing how we respond to environmental stress." Together they worked. Mara handled the data analysis, while Elias adjusted physical controls and power regulators based on instinct and experience. The system responded positively, its energy stabilizing as they adapted. The chamber brightened. A low hum filled the space, not threatening but approving. Mara laughed softly. "It's working, we're passing." Elias felt a surge of pride, not for himself but for humanity. This ancient alien system had waited across ages, and humans had answered its challenge not with force but with cooperation and adaptability. Suddenly, a stream of data flooded Mara's tablet. "This is knowledge," she said, her voice trembling. "Records, designs. Energy systems far beyond our current understanding." Elias looked around. "They left this for those who could survive." "Yes," Mara said, "for those who could learn." The system slowly powered down, its glow fading into a steady, calm light. The entrance behind them reopened. As they stepped outside, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the canyon. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Elias said, "This changes everything." Mara nodded. "For Urindor 9, for humanity." As they returned to the rover, Mara glanced back at the structure one last time. "I used to think solitude was strength," she said quietly. "But this required two minds, two perspectives." Elias smiled. "Humans don't survive alone, we never have." The rover rolled back toward the outpost, carrying with it the weight of discovery, and the proof that humanity's greatest strength was not power, but adaptability. Behind them, buried beneath red soil and ancient stone, the alien structure waited silently, its purpose fulfilled at last. And ahead of them, unseen challenges were already forming. The morning after their discovery, Urindor 9 felt deceptively calm. The twin suns rose over the horizon, illuminating the red plains and jagged rock formations, painting the landscape in soft shades of orange and gold. The winds had calmed, leaving only faint dust trails twisting across the ground. It was easy to forget the storm that had struck just days earlier. Inside the outpost, Mara Linton was already at work. Her fingers flew over the tablet as she reviewed the data from the alien structure. Elias Kane watched her silently for a moment, marveling at her focus. The discovery had changed everything, not just for science, but for them. "The data is incredible," Mara said finally, looking up. "The energy systems alone could revolutionize how we manage power on this planet. And the knowledge stored here, it's beyond anything humanity has achieved." Elias nodded. It's amazing, but we need to be careful. Anything this advanced could be dangerous if we don't handle it correctly. Mara agreed. I know. That's why I'm setting up a secondary containment system. If the energy destabilizes, we can shut it down remotely. Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden alarm from the external sensors. Red lights blinked on the main console. Mara's eyes widened. What now? Elias asked. The structure, she said quickly. Something is happening. The energy readings are spiking. It's unstable. Elias followed her to the observation window. Far off in the canyon where the structure rested, flashes of light pulsed against the surface. The ground trembled slightly, sending small rocks sliding down the slopes. We need to get there, Elias said. Mara hesitated. It's risky. The system is unstable. We could be caught in an energy surge or worse. Risk is part of exploration, Elias said firmly. We can't just watch it destroy itself. Mara nodded reluctantly. All right, let's move carefully. They suited up, checking oxygen levels, power packs, and protective shields. Every system had to function perfectly. The alien energy was unknown, and even the smallest miscalculation could be catastrophic. The rover carried them swiftly across the plains. The air was tense. Every bump in the terrain felt magnified. As they approached the canyon, the structure loomed before them, pulsing erratically. Sparks of alien energy jumped along its surface, illuminating the surrounding rocks. This is worse than I thought, Mara said, scanning the readings. The system is overloaded. It's reacting to our presence differently than yesterday. Elias studied the patterns. It's like it's angry. Or defensive, Mara corrected. Whatever this is, it wants to test us again, but it's uncontrolled now. They dismounted and approached the structure cautiously. The ground beneath their boots hummed faintly, vibrating in time with the energy surges. Mara raised a hand. Let's work from the access point inside. The main chamber should have stabilization controls. Elias followed as they entered. The interior was brighter than yesterday, the energy field stronger, almost alive. Symbols on the walls glowed erratically, shifting rapidly. Mara's tablet buzzed with warnings. It's adapting faster than we can read, she said. We'll need to manually interface with the core. I can stabilize the patterns, but I'll need you to assist with the energy regulators. Elias nodded. Got it. Just tell me what to do. For the next hour, they worked in tense coordination. Mara analyzed the shifting energy patterns, giving Elias precise instructions on where to adjust the regulators. Sparks flew, the floor hummed, and the walls glowed with alien light. Each action required perfect timing and cooperation. Now, Elias, Mara shouted. He moved a control lever exactly as instructed. The energy pulse subsided slightly, the lights dimming in response. Good, Mara yelled. Keep going, they continued, sweat running down their faces, hearts pounding. The system was unpredictable, but they adapted with each surge, adjusting, recalibrating, and improvising. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the chamber. A segment of the alien core shifted, sending a wave of energy toward the far wall. Elias leapt forward, placing himself in the path and adjusting the regulator in a desperate maneuver. Sparks shot past him, and the air smelled faintly of ozone. Mara glanced at him, eyes wide. Careful, Elias gritted his teeth, adjusting the control precisely. The surge dissipated, leaving the core humming steadily once more. He exhaled, feeling the weight of what they had just avoided. You saved us, Mara said, voice soft but filled with relief. We saved it together, he replied. For a moment they allowed themselves a brief pause. But the system was not fully stabilized. Mara scanned the core again. There's still an instability in the central matrix. If we don't resolve it, it could trigger a full energy collapse, destroy the structure, and maybe even the outpost. Elias frowned. Then we fix it. Step by step, Mara nodded. The central matrix requires manual synchronization. We need to access the nodes at 4 points simultaneously. I'll handle the programming, but you'll need to maintain the power flow to each node. They moved quickly, setting up the controls. The core pulsed, sensing their presence, almost as if it were testing their skill. Mara's hands flew over the tablet, decoding and rerouting energy. Elia's followed her commands, adjusting power regulators, holding energy flows steady. The structure shuddered under the strain. Sparks arced across the walls and the humming energy field intensified. The air was thick with tension. Every movement, every adjustment mattered. Node 3 is fluctuating, Mara shouted. Elias dashed to the control. I've got it. He twisted the regulator, redirecting energy precisely. The pulse steadied. Node 4, Mara yelled immediately. He moved again, hands steady despite the chaos around them. The final node aligned. The energy pattern stabilized gradually, the pulsing slowing, then fading to a steady glow. Mara let out a long breath. It's stable for now. Elias slumped against a wall, exhausted. We did it. Mara allowed herself a small smile. Yes, but this was more than survival. It was understanding. We didn't just react, we adapted. Elias looked around the chamber, the alien symbols glowing softly. Humans can face anything, he said quietly. Even something we don't understand. She nodded. That's what this structure was built to test. Not strength, not weapons, but intelligence, flexibility, and resilience. And we passed. They took a moment to catch their breath, surveying the chamber. Mara's tablet continued streaming data, recording the alien energy systems and designs. The discovery was now safe, stabilized, and accessible, but fragile. Let's make a plan, Mara said. We need to protect this structure and the outpost, and we need to understand it fully before anyone else arrives or before it reacts again. Elias agreed. First, we get back to the outpost. Then we analyze every detail, step by step. The journey back was quiet. The structure behind them glowed faintly under the setting suns, a silent testament to human resilience. The planet seemed to hum gently, as if acknowledging their success. Inside the outpost, they began organizing the data. Mara worked tirelessly, decoding alien symbols and interpreting energy flows. Elias assisted, maintaining systems and cross-referencing their findings with known human technology. Hours passed. Outside, the night fell over Urindor 9. The twin moons cast pale light across the plains. The wind whispered through the jagged rocks, but inside the outpost, humanity's presence was strong. This structure, it's incredible, Elias said finally. The technology here could change life on every human colony. Mara nodded, her eyes focused. Yes, but it's more than technology. It's a lesson. We survived because we adapted, because we worked together. It's a reminder that humanity's strength isn't just brains or tools. It's cooperation, ingenuity, and perseverance. Elias smiled. And maybe that's the real discovery. Not the structure itself, but what it proves about us. Mara glanced at him. Perhaps, but we still have much to learn. They shared a quiet moment, understanding the weight of their achievement. Humanity had faced an unknown, incomprehensible system and survived. They had not only adapted, they had thrived. And outside, Urindor 9 waited. More challenges would come, more discoveries, more tests. But for now, humanity had proven its resilience once again. The alien structure, silent and patient, had passed judgment. And humans had passed the test. The next morning, the outpost was quiet but alive. The twin suns rose slowly over the red plains of Urindor 9, their light reflecting off the jagged rock formations and painting the horizon in streaks of orange and violet. The planet had regained its usual rhythm after the storm and the crisis in the alien structure. Inside, Mara Linton was already working. Her tablet glowed with streams of data from the alien structure, now stabilized and secured. The earlier chaos seemed almost distant, replaced by a careful order. She traced the lines of energy flows, decoding symbols, recording observations, and preparing notes for future research. Elias Kane entered quietly, holding a cup of synthetic coffee. He watched Mara for a moment, smiling at her dedication. Despite the long hours, her eyes were bright, her mind sharp. She had faced danger, discovery, and isolation, yet she remained unshaken, proof of human resilience at its best. "You've been at it since sunrise," he said gently. Mara glanced up, a small smile appearing. "Time passes quickly when you have centuries of knowledge to decode, and the system, it's fascinating. We are only scratching the surface." Elias handed her the cup. "You should take a break. Even geniuses need rest." She shook her head lightly. "Not yet. Not until I understand more. But thank you." He nodded, letting her focus. He wandered to the observation window, looking out across the canyon where the alien structure rested. It glowed softly under the rising suns, a silent monument to a civilization long gone. But now humans were part of its story. "This planet is harsh," he said quietly. "Yet somehow it feels alive. Protective, maybe." Mara joined him at the window. "It is alive in a way. Not in the sense we usually think plants, animals, but in energy, in intelligence. The structure responds to us because it recognizes life capable of adaptation." Elias nodded. "Humans adapt." "Exactly," Mara said. "That's what it was designed to test, not power or strength. Adaptation, ingenuity, collaboration." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the red plain stretch endlessly into the distance. The storm, the crisis, the unknown energy, all of it had tested them, and they had passed, together. Finally, Mara spoke. "You know, I used to believe solitude was strength, that independence was survival, but now I see there is strength in partnership. Two minds, two perspectives, we can achieve more than one alone." Elias smiled. "I agree. Humans have always thrived by working together. It's what sets us apart." She looked at him thoughtfully. "And yet, it's rare to find someone who understands that immediately, someone who respects independence but can also cooperate when needed." He raised an eyebrow. "You're saying I did well," Mara smirked. "Better than well. You adapted, you trusted, and you stayed calm." Elias laughed softly. "Well, someone had to keep up with you." The moment was quiet, comfortable. They had survived storms, alien systems, and the weight of discovery. But now a new chapter awaited, the analysis, the understanding, the sharing of knowledge that could change human technology and survival strategies for decades to come. Mara turned back to the tablet, her expression serious once more. "We need to document everything. Energy systems, structural designs, symbols, even the lessons it teaches. If humanity can learn from this, we could advance faster than ever before. We could improve colonies, improve technology, maybe even prepare for contact with other civilizations." Elias nodded. "And we have to protect it. This knowledge is powerful. In the wrong hands it could be misused, but in the right hands it can show the universe what humans are capable of." They worked together for hours. Mara decoded symbols, while Elias cross-referenced them with human technology and survival systems. Slowly, a map of energy flows and adaptive patterns emerged. The alien system was more than just a structure. It was a teaching tool, a monument to intelligence, and a testament to endurance. By midday, they paused for a meal. Mara leaned back in her chair, exhaustion visible but her eyes still shining. Elias poured 2 cups of coffee and they sat in silence, savoring the moment. "You know," Elias said finally, "I didn't just come here for research. I came for diplomacy, to build relationships with isolated colonies. But I think I learned more about humanity from this than I ever expected." Mara raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what did you learn?" "That humans can survive anywhere," he said. "Even here. Alone we are capable, but together we are extraordinary. We adapt, we endure, and we grow. We leave marks on worlds long after we are gone." Mara smiled softly. "I agree. And perhaps that's the lesson the structure wanted us to learn, not just about technology but about ourselves, about the potential we carry." As they spoke, the structure outside pulsed faintly. It was calm, stable, almost as if acknowledging their understanding. The red dust shifted gently in the wind, carrying the quiet sounds of a planet alive with history and energy. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the plains. They completed the initial analysis and documentation, but Mara knew there was still more to learn. The structure was vast, its systems deep and complex. Humanity had passed its test, but its full potential was still a mystery. Elias looked at her, admiration in his eyes. "You're amazing, Mara, not just as a scientist, but as someone who can face danger, solve impossible problems, and still see the bigger picture." She blushed slightly, looking down at her tablet. I couldn't have done it without you. We worked together." "That's what made it possible," he smiled. "Exactly. Humans are best when we collaborate." They shared a quiet moment, the weight of what they had achieved settling around them. For years, Mara had lived in solitude, believing it was the only way to survive on Erendor 9. But now she had learned that human connection, trust, cooperation, partnership was as vital as skill or intelligence. As night fell, the twin moons rose, casting silver light across the red plains. The outpost was calm, systems humming softly. Outside, the alien structure glowed faintly, a reminder of the past and a symbol of the future. Elias stood at the window, looking at the stars beginning to appear. "The universe is vast," he said quietly. "And this planet, it's just one small piece, but we've left our mark. We've proven that humanity can survive, adapt, and even thrive against impossible odds." Mara joined him, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "And we've learned something else," she said softly, "that even in isolation, humans are not truly alone. We find strength in each other, and that makes all the difference." Elias nodded. "Yes, and now the real work begins. Understanding, sharing, applying what we've discovered. Humanity has a future here, one we can shape." For the first time in years, Mara felt a sense of true peace. She had faced isolation, storms, and unknown alien systems. She had survived. She had learned. And she had found partnership, someone who understood her, trusted her, and respected her independence. The next morning, they prepared for the return to the outpost's main communications system. They needed to send their initial reports to the central colony, carefully detailing the structure, its systems, and their experience. The message would change how humans approached exploration, technology, and collaboration. Before leaving, Mara took one last look at the alien structure. It pulsed softly, waiting. She whispered quietly, almost to herself, "We are ready. We will carry your lessons forward." Elias joined her. "You think it understands us?" "I think it knows," she said. "It recognizes what humans are capable of: adaptation, intelligence, cooperation, perseverance." Together, they turned toward the outpost, stepping into the future. Every step was a promise: to survive, to learn, to share, and to leave a mark on the universe. The red plains stretched endlessly, but they were no longer alone in the challenge of this planet. They carried humanity's strength with them, the ability to endure, to adapt, and to thrive. Back inside the outpost, Mara and Elias began the final stages of documentation. They organized data, cross-checked systems, and prepared a careful plan for the next phase of exploration. The alien structure was stable, but its lessons were far from complete. There was more to discover, more to understand. As they worked, the stars above Erendor 9 twinkled with a quiet brilliance. In the vast emptiness of the galaxy, humans had proven something profound. They were capable of facing the unknown, overcoming challenges, and emerging stronger. And in that realization, both Mara and Elias understood the true meaning of their journey. It was not just survival, not just discovery. It was the enduring spirit of humanity. By the time the twin suns set completely, leaving the planet bathed in moonlight, the outpost was calm. The alien structure rested silently, a monument to the past and a guide to the future. And inside, humans, adaptable, intelligent, and courageous, had carved their place in the universe. Mara turned to Elias one last time before rest. "You know," she said softly, "I haven't had a man in my home for 2 years." Elias smiled warmly. "Looks like that's changed now." For the first time in years, Mara laughed, a sound full of relief, hope, and possibility. Humanity had survived the storm, the unknown, and the challenge of alien intelligence. And in doing so, they had proven once again that human spirit, ingenuity, and collaboration could overcome even the greatest obstacles. Erendor 9, vast and red, quiet and eternal, now held the mark of humanity. And this was only the beginning.